Welcome to Biztech's Leadership Conversation Show. Today we have David Hui. He's the partner in charge in Hong Kong at Heidrick Struggles, a global leadership advisory firm that offers the full spectrum of executive and high-end talent solutions. Now, on that note, David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Very happy to be here.
Now, David, perhaps you can give us a very quick overview of Heidrick Struggles and what you do at the firm.
Okay, so Heidrick Struggles is one of the largest global executive leadership advisory firms in the world. We're headquartered in the US, listed on NASDAQ. We've been in Asia for over 30 years, in various parts of Asia. I run the Hong Kong office, and I'm also responsible for our industrial practice across Middle East and Asia Pacific.
Now, I want to talk to you specifically in this conversation around sustainability. Now, over the last couple of years, sustainability has moved from being just a buzzword to something which is largely embedded in the corporate DNA of global companies. But to start off, could you give us a few whys as to why sustainability should be high on a board's agenda?
Yeah, I think, as you said, there's a lot of interest in sustainability in the world generally. And in today's corporate world, you have to be aware not just of your stakeholders, but of also the environment you operate in. So stakeholders traditionally being shareholders. So I think it's very clear that companies need to look in the environment they operate in and take the temperature of the markets and the clients and the customers that they serve. So in that sense, sustainability is front and center for many companies in many different business sectors all over the world.
Now, David, speaking of taking the temperature, in July, you took the temperature, you released a sustainability report together with INSEAD and the Boston Consulting Group. Tell us about some of the key takeaways from that report.
Yeah, it's a fascinating report, and big thank you to Boston, BCG and INSEAD for their support in it. I mean, the key principal takeaway is that, as you've alluded to, everyone is aware of ESG sustainability as a topic and the importance of that topic at the board level, and for companies to be able to be seen to be addressing as a business topic. I think the challenge, as the report shows, though, is that it's quite easy to talk. To talk the talk is quite easy. The question then becomes what you do as a result of the talk. How does the discussion around this topic translate into actionable actions for the companies? And I think that the report really shows that, I think the vast majority of respondents, well over 65-70%, will say ESG is front and center as a discussion at the board level. But then when it comes to asking those respondents, what does the company do? What did you do as a result of that? The response in terms of positive action really drops to sort of low teens, right? And it's quite a substantial drop off. And so, a lot of the report then focuses on why this might be and what actions, therefore, companies and organizations can take to sort of bridge that gap.
Now, David, so I want to throw some numbers out because they kind of surprised me quite significantly. So 2/3, so 68% felt that sustainability had little impact on financial performance today.
Yes.
And 10% believe that sustainability will negatively affect medium to long-term financial results. That's really not saying a lot, that they're doing a lot. That's quite a worry, actually, when you think about it, because they seem that some of those headline numbers suggest that they're looking at it not as an opportunity, but really as something as a compliance issue.
Yeah, I think we've got to be fair to the companies we're looking at and the respondents. These are respondents at large listed companies. And if you look at how large listed companies are judged in the world, whichever market they're in, it really is, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, the emphasis is on short-term results. Given the nature of the markets we're all operating in, the pressure on companies to perform quarter by quarter and to show good fiscal performance, financial performance, it's understandable that people are focused on short-term business issues versus something like sustainability, which it's hard to see in the short term an impact, because most of the things that you need to do around sustainability will take time, not just to execute, but to see the impact of. So the problem is, these companies are judged on essentially quarterly, 6-monthly performance. So if the board is faced with an issue, which is a complex issue, sustainability is a complex issue anyway for any business. The question is, what can we do in this 6-month period that will affect us? And it takes a brave board, a courageous management team to say, we need to do this for the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And I think that's what causes a lot of the angst at the board level. As you say, more than 2/3 say, we know sustainability is important. We know we have to address it. We know our customers, our ecosystem, our shareholders all are aware that this is a problem. But to be honest, most people at the end of the day will say, in the list of priorities of what we need to do for this quarter to meet performance this quarter or this 6-month period, it comes down much lower in priority.
So David, so this brings an interesting question, right? And you highlight a key issue of short-termism versus long-term thinking, especially if you're a listed company.
Yeah.
And especially in the Asia-Pacific region, where perhaps the consumer is not pushing companies to be more sustainable.
Well, I think I don't know if I 100% agree in the sense that, consumers all want to buy products from good companies, ethically good companies. We all want to feel good about purchases we make. But when you think about it, does the average consumer really discriminate against a good company versus a bad company, and how much they do? Because at the end of the day, especially in the environment we're in today, with the sort of recession type stuff threatening, people are very focused on cost, right? So the consumers are focused on cost. So what do the companies need to focus on? They need to focus on delivering for their customers. So it becomes a vicious cycle, I suppose. I think, though, what we do see is that in some industries where they are more necessarily long-term industries, energy infrastructure, for example, people are taking much more of a proactive approach to sustainability. I mean, if you look at infrastructure businesses or real estate businesses, people are thinking and realizing, if we don't build an energy efficient building now, by the time we've built the building will be not commercial, because people want an energy efficient building in the future. So for some industries, they are making those moves now for the future.
Now, one of the things that also struck me, David, is as you were explaining the challenges that the short-term challenges that all these boards face, is also the fact that while they may feel the need to comply, they may not actually be sufficiently equipped from a knowledge perspective in order to execute or monitor. And that comes out in your study, which says that 29% of global board directors feel, only 29% feel completely knowledgeable enough to challenge or monitor execution. What is your take on that?
Yeah, and if you dig a bit deeper in our survey, the other interesting fact on that, or the response rather, is that almost for most of the boards, even the ones who feel they're knowledgeable, the majority of the information they get is from internal sources. So it's kind of this I'm telling you what to do, what we need to do, therefore we should do it. And from the board's perspective, they're like, well, the executive management team are telling us this. What's our gut check? What's our reference check on that? So it's a twofold problem. So the source of information, the flow of information, and the amount of information, those are the challenges for a board director. And this goes to a lot of the work we do in terms of when we're asked to advise on the composition of a board and how to make up a board and how to develop a board. We are increasingly being asked for expertise in or for people with experience in sustainability as a practical business versus theoretical sort of from a theoretical background.
And so that's really interesting, because that's really a very logical and a quick way to fill gaps within boards in terms of a knowledge base. So you have actually, as you said, not just a board member with theoretical knowledge, but really practical knowledge of execution in sustainability.
Yeah. And then it becomes that vicious cycle of, well, there aren't enough companies doing it, so there aren't enough people who've had the actual practical expertise and so on and so forth. So, but every year it gets better. Every year it gets better. Every day, every week it gets better because people are the awareness. Once you start raising awareness, you raise interest, and once you start raising interest, you pique people into doing actions and taking actions. And I do think some companies are starting to understand that if they can get ahead of their competitors, it's like making any investment in a new business. If I make an investment in sustainability, will it get me ahead of my competitors? And I think that's increasingly how boards will look at this. As I said earlier, some industries, we talked about real estate, for example, construction, but obviously energy, the whole energy sector is very much in this space. And funnily enough, in the energy sector, sustainability is a given. It's not a nice to have. Everyone knows with clean energy and the way that governments are regulating the whole sort of sector, sustainability is standard. So the boards there don't talk about it as a separate thing. It's day to day, and that's what we'd like to see other companies get to as well.
Okay, so then there's the other aspect of then execution of a sustainability strategy across the company. One of the key challenges, again, there is a knowledge gap, and the way to fix the knowledge gap, of course, is on one hand, getting board members who have the knowledge of execution. The second thing, David, would probably be education and training to bring everyone up to speed.
Yes.
Walk us through your thoughts from a Heidrick Struggles perspective of perhaps how you've helped customers do that.
Yeah, look, I think it's a common theme for boards generally at the moment, not just on sustainability, but across the whole spectrum of areas that a board's responsibility covers. A few years ago, it would have been D&I. How do you train boards to understand D&I better? Now sustainability next year will be something. And the underlying theme to us, we see at Heidrick, is just essentially how are you future-proofing your board? Because you hire the board, you select the people at a given point in time for a given set of skills and given set of experience they have. What we've come to realize and accept is that the requirements for the company, the organization will change over time. And in the same way that employees need further training, why wouldn't the directors? So we're beginning to work more and more with companies around ensuring their boards are fit for purpose, fit for future, by helping them understand where there are gaps in experience and where there are gaps in knowledge, because they're slightly different things, and trying to really get that balance right, because you don't want a board that's purely on experience without knowledge. So it's one of those difficult team dynamics. So we look at it from a team perspective a lot. How does the board function as a team? Who's responsible for this at any given point in time?
So David, I want to ask you a question. I'm a new chairman of a board, of a very large company.
Successfully placed by Heidrick Struggles, of course.
Yes, and you just placed me on this board. I have an Asia Pacific footprint in terms of my business. I'm an ASEAN business. What is that advice you would give me in terms of making my board fit for purpose? I've inherited this as an old company. Some of the board members have been around for a long time. How do I future-proof my board? Because not only sustainability is an issue, it's cybersecurity as well. It's about how do I then evolve my business?
So I think the first thing we'd be sitting down and talking about is understanding it's not a one-dimensional problem. There's not one simple solution for everything. You've got different dimensions, and we split those dimensions into essentially skill sets, competencies, and experience. And what we'd be discussing with you is what the future strategy is, and understanding what skills, experience, and competencies you need in the board to achieve those. And then we would probably begin by reviewing the current board, its capabilities in those three key sectors. We'd use things like assessment tools. We have a board evaluation tool, and then we'd build a skills matrix with you to map out where strengths and weaknesses would be. And then based on that, we would then start thinking about how you'd fill those gaps. Now, sometimes it's simply a question of giving directors some training, giving them the experience. In others, it's really a question of we probably need to bring in another director. So it really depends. And a lot of it will depend on the nature and style of the board. As you as chair, what kind of board do you want to run? What kind of team are you going to lead? Because the pressure on the chair is you're the team leader. You're not expected to know everything, but you're expected to know how to get the right solutions. So our support to you as the chair is helping you manage the team and build the team.
David, this has been a fascinating and educational conversation, and I've learned a lot. Before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think, we're all on a journey. Everyone's on a journey, and some people are on a longer journey or a shorter journey. But the journey and the outcomes are the same for everyone. We all want to have better equipped boards to enable us to make better decisions around ESG. I think sustainability is definitely here for the long term. There's no doubt about it. So the question is, even though your goals may be clouded by short-term pressure, at the end of the day, if you're going to have to solve that problem, you might as well start now. It would be our sort of takeaway. The longer you leave it, the harder it becomes to solve.
David, on that note, thank you very much for taking that time to be on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, and really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Now, we've been speaking to David Hui. He's the partner in charge of Hong Kong at Heidrick Struggles. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's Leadership Conversation show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.